Could house prices go up? Let's have a look. Good morning, everyone. Florian.Heise here with my morning stein of coffee. And I thought we'd have a look at this article written by Jason Murphy discussing house prices and why they might actually go up. Now, before we get into it, I'm going to have a sip of my stein. It's good. It's good coffee. Well, actually, no, it's not good coffee, but it's good for early in the morning. It keeps you going. But this is interesting. I think it's quite timely, too. I had a viewer call me up, and he was concerned because his boys, he was telling his sons to, hold off and wait on the property. And he's been saying it to them for years. And he was worried that they were going to miss out on opportunities for capital growth, but most concerned that he had got into a property doomer bubble, where all the people he was listening to were just reaffirming the assumptions that he'd made. And, that's a problem. That's a problem for all of us. For all of us. Because you can have all the most logical and coherent arguments going, property's not going to go up, the stock market isn't going to go up, but it still can, and it's still good. The market can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent, and that's a concern. But then the problem is you don't want FOMO, fear of missing out, getting in and pushing you to do something where, for all other reasons, you wouldn't. So it's a tough situation. And, well, here's one thing. We're not really in a free market, are we? We're not. You've got, people will blame capitalism and the free market and all this other rubbish for the mess that we've gotten ourselves into. But Australia and most Western countries, most countries actually, are in markets that have significant intervention in one form or another. Just have a look at the cash rate, everyone. I thought I've updated this anyway. That's an intervention into the market, the fact that it is so low. This is done to manipulate the market, to encourage spending. To encourage investment, to create, more demand, more money creation in the property sector. That drives up the costs of our housing. And then we have the Catalan effect, which is a bubble. A bubble, refers to the change in relative prices resulting from a change in money supply. That's what all these house purchases are. That's what these mortgages are. It's the injection point and that flow path for money supply, particularly in Australia. We're so property obsessed. And the frustrating thing I have, one of the reasons why I started looking at all of this, well, there were a couple. One was because rambling about the news to my wife got her annoyed, so it's much easier to do it on YouTube. Keep the wife happy. But the other and frankly the more frustrating one, was as an architect learning how these buildings are built and then how much they're sold for was shocking. It didn't make any sense to me. When you see someone, some lightweight timber stud, bit of plasterboard and some foam on the outside, and then selling this thing for an absolute fortune. An absolute fortune. This is why we were thinking, we've got to find a way to get into development. And then you get ripped off by some developers and you get a bit gun shy from working in that sector. But that I couldn't quite understand it. Because it didn't relate to the construction costs, the materials. Most of it's to do with labor, I'm noting now, and just spruiking and marketing. Pushing it up. So where are house prices going to go? We're seeing predictions from some economists saying it's going to drop 10%. The CBA claiming it'll drop 30%. And then all of a sudden, we get Home Builder and all these other government initiatives. And there's the big unknown. One viewer left a very good comment that I thought was very fitting, that we all have to keep in mind. We're playing in the government's sandbox. And if you're not familiar with computer game terms, a sandbox is a game which is either a universe or a space where you can just pretty much go and do anything. You can go and play and interact with it. But then you have the developers, who are our government, who can come and change the rules. Now, I've been started playing again a spaceship game, Elite Dangerous, where you simply just fly around with a ship and just look at stars and have space battles and mining and transporting. It's a good game I can actually play with the kids. I can play with the kids watching me. It's not too scary. And we can learn about all different stars and look at a representation of our galaxy. I just need to tie it to some lessons and make some handouts. It actually would be a lot of fun. But that's a sandbox there. And what they developers, they can make changes to the rules. So say you had a method for making money. They can, and then that method is going up, they can change the rules to intervene in the market. A lot of these online economies, in computer games, they have to deal with inflation, they have to deal with all these other issues because, money just appears out of nowhere. So the cost of goods is continually going up, and there's has to be some interesting economic studies with economies in these games. But that's what we're in. We're in the Australian government's sandbox. They can change the rules. We need their money, even their fiat money that I know a lot of people aren't fans of. We need it to fulfill the obligations of the tax department that are forced on all of us. Or else we have the threat of going to jail. That's it. It's the bully there. And these are the coupons we give to the bully to maintain our freedom. Really. That's what it isn't. But this is social contract, Florian, yada, yada, yada. Think of the children. That's designed to manipulate you. If it was all voluntary, it would be different. And the problem is, in many ways, nations now are so big, people are so removed from their leaders. They may go their whole lives without even meeting them in person. And you've got people with completely different ideological positions who are using the state to force their opinions of what's good onto you, onto your family. We've got now a culture where people are reporting each other more and more. If you have a look at the community, I shared a photograph of a note that was left on a client's car. They were taking their grandmother to her house to get her mail because she was somewhere else, staying with them. And she was frail, so she needed people there, and she wanted to check on her property. And a passive-aggressive neighbor recorded their car number plate and left a note. Lovely. So here's the thing. With all predictions of future property prices, are they going to go up? Are they going to go down? They'll drop 30%. You got some people in the comments, they'll constantly say, it's down to 95, it's going down to 95. The problem is they're becoming obsessed with it. They're becoming obsessed with it. You need to think, what's the political will in our country? What's going to happen? Will property go down? Well, there's a market. There's only so much intervention you can do. And how much intervention are they doing? We've got mortgage holidays that have now been extended until March. The fiscal cliff in September that was reported in the media again and again, it's disappeared. It's disappeared. You've got now the JobKeeper continued until Christmas. We have job seeker bonus. There's the discussion of continuing that even further. No, I haven't heard any other discussions about directors' personal liability while trading while insolvent. Hopefully that will end in September, but we'll have to see. And what else can the government throw at property to keep it propped up? It's a big part of our economy. And there's other discussions where they want to look at, finally, some discussions in the media where they're highlighting the fact that our obsession with property is driving investment away from other parts of our economy. So it's an easy one. And when I'm speaking economic complexity and I'm saying a house isn't complex, I'm saying it isn't, because all of the elements are imported. Economic complexity is our complexity, what we can manufacture and construct here in Australia. So with that in mind, with the fact that we're in the government sandbox and we don't know what rules they can change or what they can do, it puts a big, you need to look at all these predictions and arguments about the future with an element of skepticism. I would argue for patience. For patience, taking your time and not letting emotion overrule you, not feeling like you're going to miss out. There's always going to be another opportunity that appears. There's always going to be another property that comes on the market. The next one may be much better. You may just have to wait a little bit. Sometimes having less stress is more valuable than capital gains and a whole heap of stress. That's something that I think you don't realize until you get a bit older, a bit grayer, and have a little bit more experience, because you can get, emotionally excited and invested. Oh, I need to have that. That's very dangerous. So let's have a look at this take from Jason Murphy, everyone. There's a huge question Australians want answered. What will happen next with house prices? Oh, yes. Well, I mean, that's concerning. It's so much a part of our culture. And I've been watching a lot of US channels, US-based channels. A lot of Dave Ramsey. And I recommend it, particularly for the people that have just decimated all their debt and are living, everyday millionaires, living comfortable lives. And when you just hear how much their houses are, I know it's in US dollars, but still, when you convert it kind of just it's like a knife through the heart, compared to what we have to pay for it over here. And if you look at what they can get for their money over there, the majority view is prices will dive. So that's it. Right now, the majority view is prices will dive. So this is different to what it was in the past. When you had outliers who were just there in the media, like Martin North on YouTube, people that were shunned by the media and shunned by the mainstream, it'll never fall. Property always goes up, everyone. So now it's the majority. Australia's biggest bank forecasts house prices to fall 10% in the next 6 months. The fall, say analysts from the Commonwealth Bank, will be driven by weak sentiment, rising unemployment, social distancing, and a sharp slowdown in net overseas migration. And that is, those are elements we've all been discussing for some time, and it's a perfectly logical argument. But remember, we're in the government's sandbox. They will break the rules. They will tax people. They will make money. They will incur future debt for your children to keep this going. We can just have a look at HouseBuilder. And then people get trapped in these things, these houses. You'd hate someone to let the FOMO get to them. They took advantage of some of these government schemes. And then they're going to be on a current affair going, it's illegal, it shouldn't be fair in a year's time when they have negative equity. For a lot of Australians, the end of endless rising house prices will be very welcome. House prices are crazy high, especially in the capital cities. I include myself here. I don't own a home, although I'd like to. You'd think an economist that published a book would get into a home. Maybe there's other reasons. Maybe he realizes it's not the smartest investment you can make. There are a lot of people that just rent. That don't even want to own a home. They just rent. That's the thing. It's kind of frowned upon in our culture here in Australia because we're so property obsessed. Rent money is dead money. How would you only rent when there's other ways you can invest your money? It doesn't anchor you down to one location. But in this tumultuous time, there's a risk. A risk house prices don't do what the economic forecasters expect. The risk is they keep going up. It wouldn't be the first time Aussie prices have defied expectations and common sense to get even more expensive. So the wealth effect. Two things have me wondering about rising house prices. First is the wealth effect. Plenty of Australians are paradoxically finding themselves better off in this crisis. The wealthy are those who usually spend most on restaurants, cafes, and holidays. Now all that money is stuck in their pockets, building up and looking for an exit. Sydney-based investor John Hempton put it in a tweet like this. There are large classes of people for whom the pandemic, one, has not lowered their income, has obviously lowered their expenses, and removed opportunity to spend on some things, like skiing in Japan, for example. Expect them to spend on big things. One thing the wealthy are spending on is luxury cars. Sales of Mercedes-Benz cars hit a record in June, as the next graph shows. BMW, Audi, and Lexus too, which is a weird thing to happen in a recession if you think about it. Yes, that's insane. That's insane. Is this because people are selling second-hand cars? Or could it be the super money? Could it be people withdrawing their super money, not the wealthy, buying these cars? Seems insane, doesn't it? It really seems irrational. Welcome to the clown world, everyone. Now, partly this is caused by the instant asset write-off policy, which juiced up the usual end of financial year surge. I mean, that's the thing. I've fallen for that trap in years past. I did a video where I invested 10 grand in a piece of equipment. Part of it was I can get the tax. I can instantly write it off. And they've extended that. And I like the idea of the government allowing business to write off assets as they need it and simplify our tax system and encourages more spending. But, instant write-off, that new BMW, that new Mercedes, that new Audi. I prefer the Audi. But it was only about the policy. Every kind of car would have seen new records. Instead, it was German luxury brands that did. The explanation has been that spare cash is sloshing around in the pockets of the wealthy. The definition of recession is falling incomes. But obviously, some people find themselves with spare cash. You better expect they will spend more on houses. There couldn't be anything more Australian. Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, that's... Can you see that happening, guys? Will that dent... Will that dent the economic impact of this bubble bursting? More people will jump in because it's not uniform, this recession. Some businesses are completely forced to close down. Others can still work fine. My ability to work has not been affected at all. I mean, I've got to deal with clients remotely. If anything, it's forced me to adapt to a more remote working environment. I've actually had to do, teleconferences and Zoom calls for the first time. I've usually avoided it. I like the face-to-face. But, now it saves me the travel, reduces my costs. I'm becoming a fan. The only bad thing is Zoom's a Chinese business, so I need to look for an open source alternative. So official policy support. The government has come to the party too. The RBA set interest rates to record lows of 0.25%, and their pledged rates will stay low for a long time. Mortgage rates have never been cheaper. The government has also given us the Home Builder Grant, $25,000 for people to build a new home. These policies give home buyers the capacity and confidence to keep buying. As the next graph shows, owner-occupiers are still hitting auctions hard. Lending to owner-occupiers is up 6%, even though investor lending is actually falling. You can see here. So region by region. Now, I don't think there's a chance of rising house prices everywhere. And that's right. We need to remember Australia and property. Location is everything, everybody. Location is everything. If your spec home is on the water, it's going to be worth more than your spec home in the suburbs. That's reality. In some parts of Australia, the downward pressure is surely too much. I'm thinking especially of those areas that depend most strongly on foreign tourists, foreign students, and new migrants. Places like Melbourne CBD. In Melbourne CBD, investor sentiment matters, and rental prices have tumbled. I'd expect apartment prices to fall further with the latest restrictions in Melbourne. Now, I had a comment. My camera's falling down. A comment sent to me by a viewer. He has a friend on a body corporate, and their insurance has gone up 96% in a year. So it's another $1,000 pretty much for everyone in this complex. How's that going to affect investments? How's that going to affect the yield on your investment, guys? Think about it. It's gonna hit it. I think we're gonna see. We don't have a uniform market. So do you think rich people who are banking up, or people who are just doing better here, do you think they're going to be buying a unit in Western Sydney, or do you think they're going to be investing in something in the more luxurious areas? Let me know what you think. So this obviously spills outwards to some extent. Cheap city apartments are substitutes for inner city apartments, which substitute for inner city units, and then in turn substitute for inner city houses, etc. But this wave of discounting can only go so far before it breaks on a reef or cashed up wealthy people competing for family homes in good suburbs. Those suburbs are where house prices seem most likely to hold steady or go up. Suburbs with a lot of public sector employees. Total jobs down just 0.9%. Finance and insurance employees, jobs up 0.9%, or electricity and gas employees, jobs up 1.4%. The government has actually done a good job of propping up the economy in some places. JobKeeper has worked well. And so long as the Treasurer doesn't slash it too much when he does his budget update next week, it should continue to keep the Australian economy from falling in a heap. This is welcome news. It also means that house price easing that so many Aussies are waiting on might never materialize. So what do you all think? What's your take on this, guys? What's your take on this? I think the takeaway here is that we're not going to see uniform house crashes. You're not going to see property falling everywhere. There's going to be certain sectors that will be more resilient to price changes. And well, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. But remember, we're also just in the beginnings of this recession. We have to see how it plays out. It's not going to be a fast-moving process. It's going to take a year or two to see what happens. If we have 18 months of property falls and property just falls 0.5% or 1% over 18 months, what's that? Between 9 and 18%. That's pretty significant. If we're looking here at think about that. Think a 10% cut in the blue line here. 10% down 120, it's down 12%. So it'll be about here. So we're talking years back of property prices. Years of gains disappeared. That could happen. That could happen. That would be quite reasonable. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. Well, let me know your thoughts and opinions, everyone. What are you planning to do? Are you rushing out there letting FOMO? Or are you just taking it steady and waiting? As always, thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and want to support the content I created, there are a few ways you can. Simply joining the channel on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using any of our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, Kucoin. You can buy our merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. I've got to fix my camera before it sinks any further, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.